Mike's Daily Podcast.
Episode 1442. That's when, what's his name, crossed the ocean blue, right? Oh, that was 1492. Don't let history get in the way of a good story. It's Mike Matthews here, broadcasting from Café Anyway, located somewhere in Podcastro Valley, Mont. Today, Chely Shoehart, Floyd the Floorman, John Deere the engineer.
Mike's Daily Podcast.
And in honor of my mom, who is doing very well in Daytona Beach, despite Irma, I'm going to do a segment called
Mike's Daily Podcast.
WOW SCHATZ WOW. That's right. It's a fun little segment, and then I will look and see I've got some pigment because I went in the sun a couple days recently, and then I said something indecently, and I said it to my dog, and he said,
Mike's Daily Podcast.
because that's the name of my show. No, actually, I got to teach my roommate yesterday how to walk my dog, so
Mike's
when I'm in Florida,
Daily
he can walk him.
Podcast.
Now, my roommate's a millennial.
Yeah!
Not a millennium, by the way. Some people don't know. You don't call them millenniums. You call them millennials. Like perennials. Like those flower thingies. They keep coming back every year. Millennials is what they are called. Or what they, what... I think they should call themselves whatever they want to call themselves, but that's whatever the name is that's stuck. Like with me, it's Generation X. It's stuck. And so now I'm into a Billy Idol song, I guess. Billy Idol was in a band called Generation X, and they had that song, "A Dancing with Myself." I mean, look who walked in. Hello, Mike Matthews. It's Chely Shoehart, the chef supervisor. Oh my God, that song was like one of my favorite. Did you dance in a lot of clubs to those songs? Yes, Mike Matthews. Look who else walked in. Oh, Mike, this is Floyd the Floorman. And this is John Deere the engineer. Mike, it seems that Florida is still recovering from the floods in some areas. Yeah, I was very concerned in Daytona Beach. My mom may have been flooded, but she's fine. So it was just some parts of Daytona Beach that are low-lying. And so I'm still planning to go and visit my friend John. He emailed me in the section called Emails from Email and Your Common Not So Comments. But first I have to say this.
And here's today's podcast picture.
It's not a picture of Daytona Beach, darn it. I don't... My pictures are at home. I didn't bring any of my podcast pictures of Daytona Beach. So I'm going to just have to tell you that today's podcast picture is of something closer to me, and that would be the sunset. The sun setting over the peninsula here in the Bay Area, of you looking out over the bay from Hayward Regional Shoreline, where I was once again with my dog, Basil the Boxer. And it was a beautiful sunset. I caught it just before it dipped below the mountains. So see that picture at mikesdailypodcast.com, where you can also help out the show through the Amazon link. If you're going to buy anything on Amazon, click on that Amazon link at mikesdailypodcast.com. You'll see the icon. And before you buy anything, you'll help us out if you go through the mikesdailypodcast.com website and you do your shopping. It doesn't change the way you shop. There's also the PayPal if you'd like to help us out that way. You'll get a special greeting from all the Café Anyway characters, a special MP3 for thee from all the Café Anyway characters. Find that at mikesdailypodcast.com, and all the past podcast pictures, which I don't have any of Daytona Beach, except for the one I posted on Sunday was one from that. So I should go and try and find another for you. But John, who I'm going to meet in Daytona Beach, I haven't seen him in a while. He said, hey, listen to your show. He caught the show off of Twitter. So some people still go to my Twitter. I am at Mike Talks on Twitter, and so that's very awesome. And that was his... shoot, I should have played the intro.
Oh my God!
Email from email and your calm and not so calm mess.
He had a very calm comment, so that's always good. Yeah. And applause to him. Okay. And applause to my roommate for being able to figure out how to, this was the thing. He's a millennial, and when I was, and I've trained a lot of millennials in my life. Well, not, recently I have. And a lot of them don't like to write stuff down. This is what I've noticed. They're just like, oh yeah, I know that. There's people of all generations that don't write stuff down when you're training them. But this millennial that I was walking Basil the Boxer with, he also was not writing anything down, but he was asking a lot of questions, and that was good. He was asking, now, how do you do this again? And what does Basil do when this happens? And what do I do in this situation? And da-da-da-da-da. And it was great. So I feel very good that I am leaving Basil the Boxer in his hands as I head over to Florida. I just wanted to bring that up. And, I'm going to be in a Republican state. Florida is a Republican state. It voted Trump. It's having some issues with the power grid, the electrical system, even though they have one of the best in the country. And in fact, Obama was there in 2009 when he was launching some program that had to do with our electrical system in the U.S. But he was there in kind of promoting Florida. I think, though, here in California, we have, even though I complain about the traffic and I complain about the prices, sometimes I'm glad I'm in a Democratic state. It just, sometimes, hey, there's going to be some things like, we're probably not going to have some kind of leaky nuclear chemical biohazard just down the street from you. There's a little less likely of that happening here in a Democratic state. Or that's what we generally believe, but we'll see if that's true. In this increasingly more Republican country of which we are living in, and the EPA, bits more pieces of it and less pizza in it, and it's being downgraded. Money's being taken out. Trump doesn't like it. He says, you know what? I know what's right and wrong, and I know what's good and bad. And he has to make this a fine-tuned machine.
This is a fine-tuned machine.
So he's gonna take money out of the EPA, and there'll be less stuff. You're gonna probably have more stuff like you had in Texas, where you had these biochemical hazard things leaking all over the place. So after the flood, but at any rate, that was my thought about my one thing about liking it here in California. That and the awesome weather, and we had a beautiful rainstorm 2 days ago, and it just was like, oh, you mean we get a rainstorm and we don't have to live with humidity 9 months out of the year? Awesome. I can stick around then for a little while longer. Anyway, let's get to in honor of my mom, who I'm going to see, she's very Republican-ish. I think we should do this little segment for her called
Wow Schatz Wow.
Because she calls me Schatz, and when I tell her something surprising, she goes, Wow Schatz Wow. So let's start with Florida. While the rest of Florida began picking itself up after Irma. But did I mention, I don't know if I buried this in the lead somewhere, but she does have her power. Power is back where she is, but the rest of the state isn't so lucky. Some floodwaters from the massive tropical storm were expected, but the scale of the unfolding disaster took Jacksonville and nearby towns by surprise. Now, Mom is about an hour south of Jacksonville. I know I drove through Jacksonville to get to her when I was coming down from Georgia one time. Driven by tidal flow, an already saturated inland waterway system, and Irma's powerful winds and rains, the swollen, fast-rushing St. Johns River crashed over seawalls and sandbags and left much of the area underwater. The river, through the city of nearly 900,000, has not hit these levels since 1846. That's the year after Florida became a state. Yesterday, the city started to recover, but meteorologists warned that some flooding is likely to return as storm-generated waters rush south from the Carolinas toward the Atlantic Oceans. The St. Johns River is 315 miles long and 3 miles wide at points, is expected to continue threatening communities in northeast Florida because the huge volumes of water the river is holding have no place to go. St. John's also is where I know there's a bunch of awesome restaurants on the St. John's River, so oh man, I hope none of them get knocked out, but that's a possibility. The water will subside very gradually within the St. John's River basin. The water is trapped in the St. John's and essentially sloshes north to south within the river with each high tide. Major river flooding will continue for many more tide cycles. Hundreds of residents had to be rescued from the rising waters in Jacksonville and nearby communities after they chose not to heed pleas from local and state officials to flee the area ahead of Irma. Well, my mom didn't want to flee either. And from what I hear, a lot of pets got abandoned. Here in California, and probably all over the country, we have all these public service announcements around the 4th of July saying, be careful with the loud noises, your dog will run away, blah, 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 think of your dog. And here we are, we just abandoned our pets at our homes during the storm where, talk about noise, the wind, the lightning, the thunder, everything. And we're just leaving dogs at home. Okay, that makes no sense to me as a dog owner, but millions of Floridians headed north to escape Irma's potential path after officials warned that the once powerful storm could cause catastrophic damage to several Florida cities. The evacuation order was lifted on Tuesday. Business owners returned to riverfront shops and restaurants to find seagrass, tree limbs, and an inch of mud covering streets and some sidewalks. By midday, the mud started to give off a strong odor as it baked in the hot sun. I witnessed that on Sunday when I went to Alameda. Alameda, you've got to get it together. You've got to get it together. You have got to have more outdoor cafes. What is your problem? Oh my gosh, I went there on Sunday, super hot day with Basil the Boxer. I'm like, I would like to just have a nice beer, maybe a sandwich, and sit outside a cafe somewhere. No outdoor seating like anywhere. But Mike, the real estate's too pricey in Alameda. You can't afford to have a little patio area. Well, then you're not going to get my money. I didn't end up spending any money in Alameda. I went there, walked Basil the Boxer around a little bit, then I got the hell out. I went home and ate. By the way, I don't eat out much. As I've gotten older, I've learned, how to cook things I like. And I go, I'd rather eat this at home because I know I'm not going to get a gazillion calories and I'm going to save money. I like that. And that's part of my segment called the Cutting Corners Corner.
Cutting Corners Corner.
The Cutting Corners Corner. Well, I think our good friend James Comey might be mildly nauseous.
It makes me mildly nauseous
because President Trump's top spokesperson said yesterday that federal prosecutors should consider bringing a case against him, the former FBI director. Sarah I Heart Huckabee Sanders said at a press briefing, because she is our press secretary of the White House, she said it's up to the Justice Department to prosecute Comey, but said that the move, quote, should be looked at. I think if there was ever a moment where I went a little Kennedy there. I think if there was ever a moment where we feel someone has broken law, particularly if they are the head of the FBI, I think that's certainly something that should be looked at. It is unusual for the White House to advise the Justice Department on what cases to examine, Sanders said. But she's not here to direct DOJ into actions. Let's go to another Sanders. How about Bernie Sanders? I don't think they're related. Are they? Oh, maybe. But that would be interesting because you got Sandra Hart Huckabee, Sarah Huckabee Sanders, and Bernie Sanders, and they're on the opposite sides of the political spectrum. But Bernie is ready to unveil his bill for starkly reshaping our current hodgepodge healthcare system into one where the government provides medical insurance for everyone. Republican senators are preparing to roll out details of a last-ditch effort to repeal and replace Obama's healthcare law. And you know, our former president, he said,
Washington's made things worse.
So we'll see what happens. The rival packages have little in common other than the likelihood that neither is going anywhere. Several weeks after the GOP drive to uproot Obama's 2010 healthcare law crashed in the Senate, two Republican senators, Lindsey Graham of South Carolina and Louisiana's Bill Cassidy, on Wednesday they were releasing their plan for trying again. They've struggled for weeks to round up sufficient support for the package. It would cut and reshape Medicaid, disperse money spent under Obama's law directly to states, and erase Obama's penalties on people who don't purchase coverage. And I heard John McCain supports this Lindsey Graham bill. Finally, let's get to Apple has released their new products. I think there's two new phones. There's the iPhone 10. There's a brand new iPhone 8. And that there's this thing, the watch will be able to access, your iWatch will be able to get on to the cellular. It can be a phone, in other words. It's becoming the world of Dick Tracy. Calling Dick Tracy. Yeah, it's going to be that kind of an interesting watch, is what that was, which we knew all along it was heading that direction. But yesterday, Apple unveiled its new FaceID facial recognition technology for the iPhone X, the successor to the iPhone Touch ID fingerprint scanner. The company says FaceID is 20 times more secure than Touch ID and can be used for unlocking apps and using Apple Pay. Still, this kind of technology raises a lot of questions. And here's what Quartz is wondering. The tech website Quartz says, where will this data be stored? It has traditionally stored biometric data on its secure enclave, which is like a separate encrypted computer on your phone. If the data is only held on your iPhone, it's far safer than in the cloud. What are the legal implications of opening your phone with your face? Will police be able to use your face to unlock your phone without a warrant? And it may not be clear yet, according to lawyers. What else will Apple use the data for, even if it's just on our phones? An Apple executive said that the sensors used for the Face ID are also used elsewhere, like to track your face on Snapchat and to make animojis. Will Apple also use that data to track which parts of an app you're looking at, or to gauge your emotion when interacting with your phone? Who else will have access to those sensors? How are apps not made by Apple going to be able to tap into the Face ID function to authenticate who you are? And could other developers access that to collect advertising metrics? Oh my gosh, our face. It is becoming a face world, a Facebook world, a selfie world. That's what we wanted, right? To take selfies with our selfie sticks. It's like the last show I called Mirror. That's all we want as humans is mirrors. Thank you. Did you enjoy my little... That was my little tangent.
Mike's little tangent.
All right, I hope you enjoyed that. Your phone could be turned into a spying tool for any app you use. As we go outside of Café Anyway, where we bring you Mike's Daily Podcast somewhere in Podcastro Valley, Mont. Finally, the last question this article asks, does facial recognition this effective really make sense in real life scenarios? Say someone snatches my phone out of my hand, points it at my face to unlock, and then runs away. What happens if someone gets in an accident and can't use facial recognition? What weather and lighting? Yeah, that's right. That happened to Jennifer Grey, didn't it? of Dirty Dancing. No one puts her in a corner. What weather and lighting conditions does it work in realistically, and what issues have we not anticipated because mobile facial recognition isn't widespread? Back to Dirty Dancing. Back to the 80s. Back to that time in the 80s when that song was popular, when the, I had the time of my life and all that stuff. Do you remember, Bruce Springsteen was huge in the 80s. Basically, he had Born in the USA. And then every video he put out for a while got really popular. He had that dancing in the dark, not Dancing with Myself. There were a couple dancing songs. Unlike the Lady Gaga song, Just Dance. She has fibromyalgia. She announced yesterday. But no, so back to Bruce. Huge in the 70s. He got his start popularity-wise. Well known for his concerts where he would talk about his personal thing, social stuff and whatnot. He, in the 80s, had all these videos that, whoa, I'm on fire. Hey, little girl, is your daddy home? Did you go and leave you all alone? That video, everybody was, oh my God, he's like a mechanic. And he's really hot, and he's, you don't know if he's gonna, if this woman's gonna cheat on her husband with Bruce Springsteen and blah, blah, blah. Everybody was just entranced by Bruce. He really utilized the MTV world. People forget that. Because you listen to your 80s, iHeart 80s type radio stations, and it's all Go-Go's and Tears for Fears and Depeche Mode and Human League and all the new wave stuff that I love, but Bruce was big. Gloria Estefan was big too. I just remembered that too. I don't want to lose you now. But Bruce had the big Born in the USA album. What was that called? Was that called Born in the USA? I'm having a mental block at the moment. I think it was. And then there was the album Tunnel of Love. And it had this one song called Brilliant Disguise where he totally takes apart a marriage that's failing. And in the music video for that, it was shot in black and white. And he basically sang it live to the camera. What you're hearing, his vocals, that is live. That is actually happening as the video was shot. It wasn't like what they usually do where they took the song and then the singer lip sang to it. And Bruce Springsteen was a horrible lip syncer. He could not sing to the words of his video. Every video you see by him, he messes up at some point. So in this one, he's actually singing, and it's interesting because, you hear the bad notes he's singing, occasionally he's like way off with the correct part of the melody or what have you. But then after Tunnel of Love came this album called, what was it? Luck of the Draw? Something like that. I can't remember his albums specifically, but it had this song called Human Touch. And it sounded a lot like the big hits like I'm on Fire, My Hometown, A Tunnel of Love, Brilliant Disguise. It had the sort of the organ synthesizer and him playing guitar. And in Human Touch, Bruce Springsteen, and I watched this yesterday because I remembered, I kind of like the song. You and me, we were the pretenders. Baby, in this world without pity, do you think I'm asking too much? Baby, I just need someone to hold on to, and a little of that human touch. Yeah, a little of that human touch, yeah. Oh, and I also liked Bruce Springsteen back when I had hair because we had similar hairstyles. Curly man fros. There's a nice way of saying that, but we had curly hair. In the Human Touch video, he has his shirt off for a lot of this video, and I think this was the first music video where Bruce actually was like, screw it, I'm a sex symbol, let's go with it. And the song did pretty well, but when you watch the video now, you will laugh. So I suggest you do that today, because you need a good laugh. Or go dancing. Dance with yourself, whatever. It's been a pleasure talking to you today. Next show, we're going to have Benita, the Disgruntled Fiddle Player, and the Brewmaster.
Mike's Daily Podcast is written and produced and performed by Mike Matthews. His podcast is super easy to find. Download or listen to his show and read his blog at mikesdailypodcast.com. Email Mike now at mikesdailypodcast@gmail.com. See you tomorrow. Bye!